If you are here, it is because you are looking to get back the 24 hours of your day that you're literally unsure where they're going or what you're doing with them. All right, so we are here today and we are going to talk all things 24-hour wheel. You maybe have heard about this concept before, or maybe you never have. Either way, I'm super excited to get to talk about it with you today. So really quickly, if you're like, what the heck is a 24-hour wheel? Like, I'm kind of interested, but what is this thing? It's literally this simple. I made this in a Google Doc or maybe a Microsoft Word doc or something at some point. It is the 24 hours of the day split into little triangles amongst one big circle, aka referred to as the 24-hour wheel. Now, there are times I did not list out every single time on here. I just did a few increments so that it would be easier to quickly see what time of day we're talking about here. The 24-hour wheel is for the person looking to figure out what the heck am I doing with the 24 hours of my day? The person who constantly says I'm too busy for that, or I can't take on anything else because I literally don't know where I would fit it into my life. Or for the person who is like feeling double booked and they're constantly like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that, or I didn't know about that, or how am I supposed to fit all this in, or whatever it might be. You might also be someone who's looking to add in like a part-time job, or you're looking to add in a health routine, or you're looking to add in a hobby, or you're looking to add something into your current life, but you're literally unsure where that could possibly fit in based on the busyness that is your life currently. This is for you, and I promise you, this could be so beneficial to your everyday life. This template that I've shared with you is included in the description box below. So if you want access to that, feel free. You do not need to go waste your time, your precious time, creating your own 24-hour wheel. I am happy to share mine with you. Just don't judge on the fact that it is not perfect. We're not worried about perfection here. We're just worried about getting our time back, okay? All right, so today we are gonna go through 3 tips of why you need a 24-hour wheel, why it could be beneficial, but more specifically, tips on how you can own your day and stop letting the day own you, to figure out what needs to stay in your day and what might need to actually change or be gotten rid of. And then the ultimate goal of this is to reduce stress in your everyday life. I'm not trying to get you to fill out this 24-hour wheel so that you're like a robot and you're like following things to a T, but instead I just want you to feel more empowered with the 24 hours that you have, because newsflash, we all have the same 24 hours, but some of us are crushing those 24 hours and others of us are really struggling and stressed out through those 24 hours and unsure how others are getting so much done. So I'm hopeful that by going through this and filling this out, you will come to find that maybe you're wasting some time that you didn't even realize you were wasting. Maybe you have pockets of time that you didn't realize that you had, or maybe you're realizing that you have overbooked yourself and you really need to let some things go. And while that might be hard, it's going to be so beneficial for you in the long run. Personal experience, the first time that I filled out one of these 24-hour wheels, I was the person who said all the time, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy. I can't, I'm too busy. I filled out one of these and I found out literally that I was wasting 2 to 4 hours every evening. And I could not tell you what I was doing during that time. Come to find out, turns out what I was doing, I was watching TV and scrolling on social media for 2 to 4 hours every day. What a waste of time. And that was quickly something that I was like, we are cutting that out. I do not need that in my life. I was also at that point trying to add in a part-time job, and I needed to find time for that because I was like, when am I possibly going to do this? I'm so busy, right? Filling this out helped me see the pockets of time that I actually did have in front of me that I was literally letting go to waste. Got done with that, no more wasting time, and I was able to really take that time. I still allowed myself to watch TV, so don't think that I just like cut out TV altogether. Still scroll social media too, just like everybody. But I wasn't giving myself 4 hours to do it anymore. I was giving myself much less time to do that and utilizing the rest of that time to work towards the goals and take on the part-time job at that time that I was looking to add into my everyday life. All right, tip number 1, first and foremost, you gotta take ownership of your day. We are done with the excuses. Now, please know, I do understand our 24 hours are going to look different. Yours are gonna look different than mine are gonna look different than hers are gonna look different than his. But we still have the opportunity to look through and figure out what our 24 hours looks like, what we can change, what we can keep, what needs to stay, what doesn't need to stay, and so on. You have to take ownership though. There's no more, I don't know what I'm doing during that time. And there's no more, I'm too busy, I just can't. There's no more of that. By filling out this 24-hour wheel, you're going to know so clearly what you can do, what you can't do. You're gonna know what you have time for, what you don't have time for. And more importantly, you're gonna feel so empowered to be able to say no to things because you just don't want to. It's not even that you don't have time anymore. You're just realizing that's not important enough to build into your schedule right now, and you'd rather do something else. You'd rather do something else with your time, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is one of the most empowering feelings. There's nothing wrong with that, and instead, I encourage that to be something that you adopt and include in your everyday life. Okay, tip number 2, keep it or change it. So as you are filling out your 24-hour wheel, first and foremost, we're gonna start with the non-negotiables. You gotta have sleep in there. If you work, you gotta put your work in there. You gotta include times that you're gonna be eating, showering, you know, those sorts of things. Like the non-negotiables, those have to go in there first. So let's schedule in sleep first. I encourage you to figure out what amount of sleep is best for you. For me personally, through just some trial and error over the years, I have found that between 6 and 7 hours, really 7 hours is like that sweet spot. But if I can get between 6 and 7 hours, I could be a functioning adult and I can handle it. If I get more than 8 hours, I'm actually groggy all the next day. If you're getting on average a good amount of sleep each night, there is a chunk of time that best suits you and is the perfect amount of sleep for you. This is just me coming to you as someone who has done a lot of trial and error, helped a lot of people with this. So sleep first. Next, if you work a job, put that in. If you work an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5, obviously you're not probably gonna be doing much else during that time. If you have an hour lunch break, you can include that hour lunch break and put that break in there. Otherwise, just block off that entire section of the day, knowing you're not gonna be getting anything else done, right? So block that off, block your sleep off. By this point, you will see you don't really have a whole lot of time what's left, but what you do have left, that's where you have the opportunity to start plugging some things in, start scheduling some things in. Between sleep, if we sleep about 8 hours, and if we work about 8 hours, that's 16 of our 24 hours. We only have 8 hours left. But at the same time, we have 8 hours left. That's a good chunk of time that we can be doing other things. So now you need to think in, okay, meal times. Well, if you've already included your lunch meal time, that's already included in there. So you don't need to necessarily add that in to your work day. But you need a time to have breakfast. You need a time to have dinner. So those are gonna be things you're gonna plug in. You need a time to like bathe and take care of yourself, right? So that needs to be plugged in somewhere. And you might actually take your own 24-hour wheel and you may like cut it in half. Maybe you need some half-hour sections in there. That's perfectly fine. But once you've got those in there, next is when you start scheduling the other things. Drive time to and from your job. If you have an hour commute, that needs to be in there because obviously you're not gonna be doing much during that hour-long commute. If your kids have games, if you're included in other like volunteer activities or clubs or groups within your community, those need to be scheduled in. One thing that I wanna point out though, in this 24-hour wheel, do it based on the most typical day. Don't do it just on that one random day a month where you have these extra things that go on. Obviously those days are gonna be a little bit different, but do this based on your most typical day of the week and fill it out in that way to give you the most clear idea of what a typical day in your work week is gonna be like, okay? So take some time, put in the non-negotiables, and then start thinking through what else do I wanna include? This is the step where I realized from about 3:30, 4 o'clock until about 6:30 in the evenings that I literally did not know what I was doing with my time. And that's when I realized, oh, I'm just sitting on the couch watching TV and scrolling social media. That is not beneficial to the life that I'm trying to build. That time needs to be used more wisely. So this was the eye-opener for me to figure out where I was wasting time. And then it was also really good and it helped me see where I was using my time efficiently. My goal then became, I want to make more of my time efficient and productive. So this helped me see that. Had I not filled this out, I probably would still be wasting that 3:30 to 6:30 chunk of time every single day watching TV and not living the life that I live today. So take some time, schedule your things in, and just think through what do you want to start including. In the event that you are someone that's trying to take on a part-time job, or you're trying to decide if you have time to do XYZ, this is going to be a great opportunity to show you where you might be able to fit that in. Maybe you're wanting to start taking a workout class at your local gym. Maybe it happens at a certain time every single day or a couple days a week. This will be able to show you, will I actually be able to make it to that? Maybe you're wanting to do a cooking class or a pottery class, or you want to start having dinner with some friends one night a week, or whatever that might be. This is going to help you see, okay, this is the time that I have to do that. Or I don't have the time to do that with my current schedule. Do I need to keep some of these things? Do I need to change some of these things? Maybe this actually isn't serving me anymore. Maybe sitting down and watching TV for 3 hours every day isn't serving me anymore. I should change that. That's how it was for me. So I made some changes and I started scheduling other things in during that time, and I was able to accomplish so much more, and I was able to take on that part-time job that I wanted to take on because I literally had that chunk of time that I could now commit to that job. So take some time, look through yours, put in all your non-negotiables first, then start plugging in the other things, deciding if you want to keep them or if they need to be changed, and if you're going to change them, what are you going to put there instead? All right, and tip number 3, the goal of this is not to be stressed, it's to be less stressed. This is supposed to help you see that you have time in your day. You're not busy, busy, busy. You're not, I can't. You actually do have time, and you have time to do things that you want to do, not just everything that you have to do, like work, right? You have time to do some other things and include some other things in your life, and you get to do that. So the goal is to help us see we do have time. We aren't constantly stressed, or we don't have to be constantly stressed, because we now know we can plug in time to do things for ourselves. We can plug in time to take trips, to have dinner with friends, to go to that workout class, to go to that cooking class, to be a part of that club, to be a part of that group in my community. We now have time for that because we've figured out where the chunks of time that we've been wasting in our everyday life are. Right? So I really, really, really want to encourage you that as you're doing this, I don't want you to be overwhelmed or feel stressed out as you're filling this out, but instead I want you to see this as, wow, I now know what time I have. I now know what time I've been wasting, and I now feel empowered because I can take that exact same time and I can do something really beneficial and great with it. As a former teacher, I worked with many students who got anxious whenever they didn't know what was coming next. We used visual schedules, we used various things. If you're the type of person that's ever gone to an event or a wedding and you're like, oh, they have an itinerary, great. I know that the wedding's gonna be here at this time, and then after that's gonna be cocktail hour, and then dinner's gonna happen at this time. I'm starving, I cannot wait for dinner, but I know that it's gonna happen at 7, pumped. You're less anxious about it, you're less worried about it because you literally know what to expect because the itinerary is there. So think of this very similarly. This is kind of your itinerary for the day of knowing exactly what's going to happen in those days. The point of this is not to schedule every second of your life. It's not to feel like you can't move or breathe or make a change, but instead it's to give you this basic framework of what it is that you're wanting to do in your day. And then if things need to change, you can easily change them. This is a fluid plan. It is made to change. It is not set in stone. It is not the end all be all. It is simply a framework that's gonna help you now see where you were wasting time previously and where you're not going to waste time anymore. Because of that knowing and being clear on what your days look like and where you have those pockets of time, you are now going to be less stressed because you're gonna understand your everyday life more. You're gonna understand your 24 hours better than you ever have been, which is going to give you relief. It's going to give you feelings of being calm because you know and you are in charge and have taken ownership of those 24 hours instead of just letting the day come at you and you being clueless about what's next or what's supposed to happen or what am I supposed to be doing right now. You're clear on it. You know what you're doing, and now you have this day ahead of you that is very, very clear on what's to be expected, and the stress can lessen tremendously, which is ultimately the goal. All right, and some final tips. Give yourself some time to fill this out. This isn't gonna take just like 2 seconds. Sit down 15 minutes, grab a cup of coffee, grab a drink, play some good music, and just think through what you want this day to look like based on, of course, the non-negotiables. You gotta schedule those in too. This isn't an ideal day. This is a realistic day, but there are pockets of time that you might have some freedom and some finagling that you get to do. But I want you to also think, whenever you're filling this out, this is not a weekend. Weekends are too unpredictable. They change all the time. A lot of us do a lot of traveling, or we just unplug. So pick a work week day, because then you're going to have a more realistic view of that. Most of us work the majority of the week, so picking a work day is going to help you better understand. And oftentimes work days are the more stressful days. Weekends tend to be more chill. So we're trying to lessen the stress on those busy work days, not necessarily schedule out our weekends where we're resting and having a little bit more freedom. So make sure to pick a day that's a typical work day in your life. Maybe you work weekends or nights, whatever that might look like. Yours might look a little bit different, but 24 hours is 24 hours, and you have the ability to schedule that out. Another thing that I want to make sure that you include is that you schedule some time for you, even if it's just 30 minutes. I want you to make sure that you are including some time for you in this 24-hour wheel. And I don't mean sleep, and I don't mean work, and I don't mean showering. I mean some actual time where you're doing something for you. Maybe you like to do puzzles. Maybe you like to read fiction. Maybe you like to go on walks. Whatever that might be, try to get that scheduled in. Maybe you just title it me time. And maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's the first 30 minutes that you get home from work. You give yourself 30 minutes to change out of your work clothes, and you just get to decide me time, whatever that 30 minutes looks like. Maybe it's watching a television show that's 30 minutes long. Perfect, watch it. Maybe it's going for a walk. Great, go do it. Maybe it's doing a puzzle for 30 minutes and you're listening to a true crime podcast while you're completing the puzzle. That sounds awesome. I mean, anybody else? But take some time and make sure to schedule in some me time in your 24-hour wheel. I promise that's gonna help relieve stress even more, and it's gonna make you excited every single day for that me time chunk of time. I mean, it sounds phenomenal, right? And you have the ability to do that because your 24 hours are yours to do with what you want to. Again, I wanna make sure to remind you that there is a template here in the description box, so make sure to save this. It's just a link, it's a Google Doc that I created. You have free reign to it, print it, do it digitally, however you'd like to do it. If you want to share it with me, that would be awesome. Drop any comments that you have. Have you filled out one of these before? Are you excited to do this? Are you a little anxious? Once you filled it out, let me know if you end up finding any chunks of time that you were literally wasting like I did. I find that when I work with others who fill this out, they do end up being like, oh wow, I was definitely wasting a lot of time. So I'm curious if you were one of those people, or if you've already been really efficient with your time. And if you have been, good for you, kudos to you. This might not be as big of a deal for your everyday life because maybe you've already been good about scheduling that out. But for those who are constantly feeling rushed, this tends to be a really good exercise to do just to give some insight on what your everyday life is looking like and why you're feeling so stressed at the end of the day every single day. And the last thing that I want to mention is just to remember that this is just a tool to help you. This is not ever, I will never come to you and say, this is the only way to do things, and if you don't do it, you're wrong. That is not how I roll. That is not how I live life. I know that everyone is different. I know that different systems work for different people. This tool may not be the tool that helps you get to the place that you want to be, but I do believe it could be helpful, and I do believe that it is worth giving a shot. So please just understand, take this with a grain of salt if you want to. This is just something that has worked really, really well for me. And as a former teacher, I always say, if something works for somebody, it's likely gonna work for someone else. Just like if someone has a question, someone else likely has that question. So I wanna be here, I wanna share this with you in hopes that it might be something that is helpful and beneficial for you. So if you liked this video, make sure to give this a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and just know I am so thankful for you being here. I love creating these videos. I've had such a blast doing it, and I can't wait to do more. So if you have any requests or anything else that you would like to see, make sure to drop those in the comments as well. Until then, we will see you next time.